Welcome to the Bucky Brooks Show. I am Bucky Brooks, and we wanted to pop on live after all of the news kind of hit the waves. It was kind of crazy being at Jaguars practice and hearing about Justin Fields, young quarterback for the New York Jets, goes off the field. It's carted off with a toe injury. What we find out was a toe injury, but initially it was a lower leg injury. So there was a lot of panic, a lot of concern about if this was a season-ending injury for the Jets franchise quarterback. Justin Fields, brought over from the Pittsburgh Steelers, the expectation he was going to juice up this offense, energize an offense as he rejoins a teammate, Garrett Wilson. He has Brees Hall and Braden Allen in the backfield. And so naturally, when you see your star quarterback carted off, there's a lot of concern. And Jets fandom, the Jets fans were really concerned about, are they going to be able to have their franchise quarterback available to play? And I'll say this, now that we're beginning to get more information, and Aaron Glenn talked to the press, and he talked about it appeared that Justin Fields had his foot stepped on. It was a right toe injury, didn't really disclose which toe. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport later came out and said that he was diagnosed with a dislocated toe. The good thing is it's not something more serious like an ankle, a knee, something that would keep him out of the lineup. But I must say, a toe injury can be very severe, and it can really impact how Justin Fields performs this season. We don't know which toe it is, but let's say it's a big toe. Big toe is central to all of the movements that you conduct with your lower body. You think about running, jumping, throwing, all of those things involve your feet, and namely, it involves your big toe. So for someone who is an athletic phenom, a freak of nature like Justin Fields, if you take away or limit some of the things that he's able to do because of his toe, it neutralizes and eliminates like his superpower. This is a guy who has 4.4 speed, a guy who we've seen rush for 1,000 yards in a season, someone that you want to put on the perimeter and utilize him as a true dual threat. Well, without his legs, it changes what we could potentially see from the quarterback going forward. Now, it's all premature. And anytime you have an injury like this, you don't know. We won't know until we get the full diagnosis and prognosis in terms of how long he'll be out, what steps they'll have to take to make sure they can get him back on the field, and what limitations he would have. But I can't say, if you're the coaching staff for the Jets, you have to ponder all the possibilities when it comes to how we may have to tweak our offense to accommodate for a less athletic, not nearly as mobile Justin Fields. And I would say that as you spend your entire offseason building this offense where you want to take advantage of his legs, his running skills, and his big arm, it can set you back a little bit. The good thing is you have enough time to kind of make those changes if needed when Justin Fields returns to the field at the end of training camp. You have enough time to kind of build this offense out and balance it up to make sure that even a limited Justin Fields can have success, whether that means more running game, more traditional play action passes, fewer bootlegs and movement-based passes, maybe a little different version on the RPO game that you would anticipate them putting in. But you have enough time if you're the Jets coaching staff, because it happened at the front end of the training camp as opposed to the back end of the training camp, to figure out a way to best proceed. The other thing that you have, if you're the Jets, in your favor is you have Tyrod Taylor, a veteran quarterback, a guy who has been a Pro Bowl caliber player, a guy who has had success in this league as a winning quarterback, someone that you certainly can hand the keys of the car to and trust that he can drive it and get it to where it needs to be. Not quite the dynamic athlete as Justin Fields, but certainly capable, experienced, seasoned, a guy who understands how to play the position and has played the game at a high level without turning the ball over, still have enough to be able to keep the Jets afloat in a very, very competitive AFC East. That said, when the news comes across the ticker that Justin Fields has been hurt, he's been carted off, the panic that kind of set in throughout, I would say, like throughout the NFL, because it's one of the young, promising quarterbacks, someone that we're excited to see. Luckily, it appears that it's not as serious as we anticipated when we heard the news, but we'll keep our eye and monitor the situation as it goes forward. But since we're talking about training camp and since we're talking about the goings on, I think it's important to talk about some of the hottest issues and topics that have come up in the last few days. We'll go down to South Florida, where Tyreek Hill addressed reporters for the first time of training camp. And one of the things about Tyreek Hill, and it kind of went undiscussed throughout the offseason, Tyreek Hill last year during the regular season finale kind of walked off the field, walked out of the game, removed himself from the game, and said, "I'm done." And when he said that, it resonated a little bit. It made Dolphins players and fans feel a certain type of way when their star receiver, their number one player, walks off the field and doesn't rejoin his team, despite the disappointment in the Jets season. I mean, in the Dolphins season, despite the disappointment with the offense and the role and the way that he was utilized, your star player cannot walk off the field. So now we go to training camp, first day of training camp. He comes back, he steps to the thing as if it's all good. Hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said it that way, but my teammates know that I'm all in. I'm about the team. I'm looking forward to putting out the best version of myself, yada, yada, yada. Here's the thing. And I see it as a sign of growth from Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins organization. Tua didn't let his star wide receiver off the hook. He talked about he has to earn the trust of his teammates. He has to build that back with his daily habits and actions. Um, I respect the team because the Miami Dolphins are in the midst of a cultural reset. They're trying to reset their team, trying to get back on track and really fulfill some of the promise that many of us had for a team that had a fun, explosive, dynamic offense, but they haven't realized their potential. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to do it. And I would say that this situation with Tyreek Hill, the way that Tua Tagovailoa is holding his feet to the fire, the way that the team is holding him accountable, to me, this is exactly what they needed in Miami. The Dolphins really didn't need to look any further than across the city in the Miami Heat and how the Miami Heat fancy themselves and pride themselves on Heat culture and how they build a culture where the standard is always raised and what they expect from their players, how they expect them to perform and give effort and play hard. The Dolphins appear to be trying to embrace some of that and do it in their own fashion. We've seen a mass exodus of veteran players. Some would say are strong personalities in their locker room, but they're no longer there. Jalen Ramsey was traded away. Jonnu Smith, Raheem Mostert, and others are not there. And it appears to me that the Miami Dolphins are really trying to hand the ball to Tua Tagovailoa and have this team kind of reflect some of the things that he is all about. What we can say about Tua, there's no doubt about his toughness. There's no doubt about his winning pedigree coming from Alabama, the way that he won there, how he performed in those stages. I would even say some of the resilience that he has shown throughout his time in the league, where he's gotten up from very difficult moments and tough injuries and continued to put his life and body on the line for his team. To me, this is the reset that Mike McDaniels has always wanted. But what he's doing is he's executing it through the guise of Tua Tagovailoa taking a bigger role in terms of being the team leader. I like it. I like what Tua said. I like what the Dolphins have done in the offseason in terms of really hitting the reset button on who they are and how they identify themselves and trying to make this team a tougher, grittier team that can compete. And I know we haven't talked a lot about the Miami Dolphins throughout the offseason in terms of being a team that is a viable contender in the AFC East. But when you look at how this team has traditionally played and how they played against their division rivals and how they have a knack for being able to kind of make their way into the tournament, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Miami Dolphins be a much tougher out than many anticipated. And it will be because of the way that they've decided to reset the culture, hand the ball to Tua, and let Tua be the leader that many of us wanted him to be. I think the first step was Tua Tagovailoa checking Tyreek Hill to make sure that everyone knows how things should be done in Miami. Let's go to Washington, the nation's capital. Terry McLaurin is officially on the reserve holdout list. Did report the training camp. We saw that he missed mini camp set out, gave up a bunch of money to not go there because he wants a new contract. And I would say, like, he certainly is deserving of a new contract given what he's done for this team throughout his career, but really how he's performed of late. Last year, 13 touchdowns. If you go back and look at since he stepped into the league, he has the 11th most receptions. He has the 13th most touchdowns. He is a guy that still plays at a high level, and he's done it with a revolving door, a cast of characters coming in and out the door playing quarterback. To me, it speaks volumes about his greatness, his elite playmaking ability, and how he's been able to adapt and adjust as a number one receiver in Washington. The problem that Terry McLaurin faces as he enters the last year of a 3-year, $68 million deal that he signed back in 2022. He has $15 million coming his way this season. The issue that you have is the market has skyrocketed. It's blown up. You talk about DK Metcalf signing his big deal where he's averaging 30 million a season. And then you look at what he's done in comparison to Terry McLaurin. You say, hey, Terry McLaurin has a good case, but age is a factor. DK Metcalf is 28, Terry McLaurin is 30. That then leads us to look at the 30-year-olds who've recently signed. Mike Evans, 2-year, $41 million. Devontae Adams, 2-year, $44 million. To me, there's an easy fix to this. Terry McLaurin is obviously beloved in Washington, not only in the organization, but in the community. He's an A1 guy, even better player. You want to reward those players with a contract that, look, lets them know that they're valued by their organization. I can't say that, hey, the Washington Commanders should go out and give him the DK Metcalf deal because age is a factor. But if you look at the sweet spot between what DK Metcalf received and what Mike Evans, Devontae Adams received, to me is telling. You're talking about a base level $20 million annually, which would be a $5 million annual raise over what he's set to make in 2022. Somewhere between 20 to 23, to me, would be a reasonable contract for Terry McLaurin. While he may want $30 million a year, I think the Commanders are well within their right to say, hey, look, we can't give you that based on your age, but we certainly can sweeten the pot and make you feel good about being a Commander, especially when he looks to the other side of the field and sees Deebo Samuel, who was brought in and also is set to command significant money next season. If you're the Washington Commanders, if you're Terry McLaurin, you got to find that middle ground. 22, 23, 25 million, somewhere in that range, has to be the sweet spot for Terry McLaurin to come into camp. Now, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Been down in Jacksonville since the beginning of training camp. I got to say, I'm very impressed with what I've seen from the Jags. Naturally, some will say I'm a homer, given my relationship with the Jags, working the sideline for them during the preseason and regular season, but also my affiliation with them as a player. But I'm going to say part of this comes from what I've seen from Liam Cohen and what he has done or is attempting to do with Trevor Lawrence. I am fully on board with. Liam Cohen comes from a situation where he was with the Rams for years, where he saw Sean McVay's impact on Jared Goff and then Matthew Stafford, 2 number 1 overall picks. Liam Cohen then had an opportunity to run his own show in Tampa with Baker Mayfield, former number 1 overall pick, Reclamation Project. Baker Mayfield had the best season of his career. We saw how Sean McVay helped Jared Goff have the best seasons of his career prior to last season when he played in Detroit. And things that Cohen did for Baker Mayfield and McVay, what he did for first Jared Goff and then Matthew Stafford, it makes sense for Cohen to steal some of those things from those playbook, but more importantly, to steal the philosophy in terms of how to help your young quarterback, your franchise quarterback, play at a high level. First thing that you'll notice is the footwork. He has worked with Trevor Lawrence to change his footwork, even the way that he sets up in the shotgun, going from being a right foot forward to a left foot forward thing to make sure that the timing and the rhythm links up with what the receivers are doing on the outside. So that's a little subtle change that you'll see from Trevor Lawrence going into the season. Another thing, when Trevor Lawrence and the quarterbacks reported to camp, he gave them a 100-question quiz to see where they were when it came to their knowledge of the offense. High levels of accountability to make sure that the quarterback not only knows the system, but he can hold others accountable because he knows the ins and outs of the system. And that certainly will be reflected in Trevor's play. The other thing that I would say is a big observation is how they've upgraded the wide receiver core. And I'll say this, and look, I'm an unabashed Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram fan. Both guys were terrific for Trevor Lawrence, particularly in 2022. The consistency, the reliability, all of that helped Trevor kind of find his game and make some improvements, helped the Jaguars go to the playoffs. But in bringing in Travis Hunter, bringing in De'Ami Brown, giving Parker Washington a bigger role, and continue to rely on Brian Thomas Jr. to be your number one receiver, what the Jaguars have done is they've upped the speed, athleticism, and explosiveness of the wide receiver core. When you think about what the Jaguars want to do in terms of scoring points, there's a direct correlation between producing explosive plays and putting the ball in the paint. Explosive plays are passes of 20 plus yards, runs of 10 plus yards. When you look at the speed that is on the perimeter, they now have increased their odds of being able to deliver those explosive plays, whether it's on the deep ball, whether it's on catch and run concepts that allow those guys to run across the field and run away from the defense. All of those things are in play. And when I really watch this team practice, it reminds me of the early days of the LA Rams when Sean McVay was trying to get Jared Goff right, and he had Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp, and he had Robert Woods playing interchangeable roles, but really crushing opponents on deep overs and crossing routes and post routes where they catch the ball on the move against the grain of the defense. And it's set up by play action with the running game. Quick observation, a lot of stretch runs, a lot of runs that are directed off tackle. And if you're able to get the defense to respect the run, particularly as it goes to the edges where the linebackers have to move quickly, when you bring it back with the complementary play action, whether that's traditional drop back action off the play fake or boot or half boot roll action, what you're doing is you're creating huge voids at the second level. So when I think about what Brian Thomas Jr. does, what De'Ami Brown does, and what Travis Hunter does, they all can stretch it vertically, but they also have the speed to run away from people horizontally. That also includes Parker Washington. So early signs, not in pads yet, this team is very reminiscent of the old school Rams as they're trying to rebuild the quarterback, much like Sean McVay did with Jared Goff. Liam Cohen gets 2 thumbs up from what I've seen early in camp down in Jacksonville. So that's a quick little podcast. We want to jump on, talk about Justin Fields, the toe injury. Luckily, it doesn't appear to be as serious as we thought when we heard the reports of him being carted off. That's good news for the Jets. That's great news for Justin Fields and Aaron Glenn because he was handpicked to be the quarterback to get them right. And then we've heard the things about Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa being held accountable as there's a cultural change in Miami. Terry McLaurin still waiting on his contract, his big payday. At some point, that is going to happen. And then the good things that Liam Cohen is doing with Trevor Lawrence, a lot of excitement down in Duval on how their young quarterback is going to perform. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is the Bucky Brooks Show. Make sure you tune in to Believe for all the latest NFL content. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, the Bucky Brooks Show. We're going to be on 2-3 times a week talking about all things ball as it relates to the NFL. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks, and I'll talk to you soon.